Hey, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending the first session of the 2022 SolEx Expo. Thank you again for attending. Today, Cassia is presenting the Records Disposition Approval module, and today we have presenting a partner, Rob Burnett. He has several decades of experience in OpenText Records Management across several industries, and he will be presenting the module to show you how to streamline and simplify OpenText Records Management using our module. We are going to jump right into to the presentation. If you have any questions for Rob during the presentation, please just put it in chat. I will interrupt Rob and we'll address your questions as we go. We can also address any questions after the presentation. And again, if you have any questions post-show, please you can reach out to me directly or by email at sales@cassiacm.com, or you can reach out to me, Sean Murphy. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for Cassia. So Rob, we will give the ball to you, and we look forward to hearing your presentation.
Great, thank you, Sean. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. We're going to be taking a look at Records Disposition Approval, or RDA, for Content Server. A quick little background of the tool is, as a former OpenText professional services consultant, I specialized in records management and the implementation of RM systems and Content Server, and I've been doing that now for over 23 years. So I had recognized some inefficiencies in the core out-of-the-box product around dispositions, and so we decided to kind of fill some of those gaps and generate this RDA module. So this module really comes from that 20 years of experience working with hands-on with my clients, understanding what their real needs are around their disposition approval process. So we're going to jump right into the demo. I'll share out my screen. So what I'd like to do first is I'm going to first set the stage so that we understand the information that we're working with. We're going to run through a demonstration of a records manager who wants to perform a disposition approval process on their finance information. And so we have a finance folder here in Content Server, and it's broken up into two divisions, accounts payable and accounts receivable. And so accounts payable and accounts receivable go to two different approvers in this organization. So we are going to show you how we're going to be able to slice and dice the search results that come back from a disposition search so that we can send them out to different approvers. So within each structure, the structures are basically built the same. Is underneath accounts payable and accounts receivable, we have corporate or company names. And then within each company, we break down and show some electronic documents and physical objects as well. Now, right from the top, we are capturing some metadata associated behind the scenes. So here we can see on our categories that on our objects, we capture the company, we capture the department that this object is found in, so accounts payable, and we are also capturing who the disposition approvers are for these objects. So here we can see we have a two-level approvers, primary and secondary, and I've associated them with Content Server groups. So that's the metadata that we're going to be using. So what we will do next is we're going to walk through the manual process of creating what we call RDA work packages and sending them out for review. But what at the very end is we'll show you how you can completely automate that process using some configuration settings. So let's go back to our finance and let's go and take a look at our disposition search. So RDA does not replace your disposition searches. The disposition search in Content Server is very great. It's very efficient. And so we are not trying to replace that functionality. So here we are. We have a finance disposition search, and I have a snapshot already. And if we take a look at that, you see the traditional snapshot results screen where we're listing all 120 objects And we have these two bars up top indicating the review process. So that's step one. We've run our disposition search. And now as a records manager, I want to slice and dice this information because part of it is for accounts payable and the other part is for accounts receivable, and they need to go to different people for review. So we'll head over to the RDA workspace. And this is the area where the records manager has the capability of building RDAs, checking in on the status, performing some functions on the results that come back from your disposition reviews. And so this is the first step of building the package. So over here on the right, we'll click on Add New. I am choosing an RDA, and out of my finance, I am going to do an accounts payable RDA work package. And I will choose my disposition search. And because I only have one snapshot in there already, it pre-selects it for me. And I'm going to click Create. So at this point, the RDA has sucked in all 120 objects that got returned from our disposition search. And now we're going to start building our package. So I'll first walk through the top portion of the screen here before we actually start doing our slicing and dicing. So at the top here, you can see that we show the disposition search and snapshot that we're building this off of. We are telling you that this workflow status is pending. Now we use the workflow here and more in the terms of the workflow process of approving and rejecting records, not a content server workflow. It tells me that I have 120 objects, no items have been excluded, and it gives me the name of the package. So number of days to complete. So this is really the first setting here that we have that can be configured. So there's a bunch of default settings we have set up in the background. This is the first one where we are allowing each of our approvers 30 days to complete their review process of their records. The second is the instructions. So the instructions are sent along with this RDA work package, and it's really there so that you can provide some additional information to the approvers so that they're very clear around what they're doing with this review. So for example, and this box here supports something called a Markdown, which is a simplified version of HTML. And so you can do things like bolding, italics, and bulleted lists and hyperlinking and things like that. So here in my example, I am informing everyone that they have 30 days to complete the process, and I'm making it bold. I'm also providing links to the company's records retention policy or classification manual in case they need some additional reference. And down over here, I also supply a email address so that if they have questions, they can click on it and email the records manager. The next setting we have is security override. So this is a great function we have here that helps ensure that every user who becomes the active reviewer will have access to the information. So typically when you are architecting your community and information and security model in Content Server, you don't open up the permissions to everyone in your organization. So even if that role in your organization would eventually need to look at the document for disposition review. So take, for example, legal. Legal department is often involved in disposition review processes, but you wouldn't typically grant them CC contents permissions on your entire enterprise workspace because that kind of clutters up their work. If they're performing searches, it'll just be too much information. And so you typically restrict legal's access to their legal department. And then when they need to have additional elevated access, you grant it at that time. And so that's what this security override feature is doing. If that legal user does not have CC contents to the record that they need to review, when that legal user becomes the active reviewer, RDA will temporarily grant them CC contents to ensure that they have the correct permissions to look at the document, look at the metadata, and make a decision on whether it should be approved or rejected. Now, using out of the box functionality, if that user did not have access to all of the records that you sent to them using the standard disposition review process, those records just don't show up for them, and they have no idea that those records are missing from their list. So it could lead to a lot of confusion and missing approval processes on records. And so this is just one reason, one way that we can ensure that we get proper reviews back. And that is again, a configuration setting defaulted on to be turned on. Okay, the next one we have here is the approvers. So if you're familiar with the out-of-the-box disposition approval process, from a standard approval process with Content Server, you get 2 approvers that you can set up. If you require more approvers than 2, you're going to have to build a Content Server workflow to handle anything more than 2. RDA has no restriction on the number of approvers, so you could have 1, 2, or 200 in here. It really doesn't matter. And so the way we choose our users, you simply start typing, and we do a dynamic lookup, and you can just start choosing the users here. So we do user 2, let's do user 3, and we can even look up our groups here. So here we have a finance, accounts payable, RDA approvers, so we could put that in there. Now, the order of these users are important. So this is a serial approval process. So it means that in the way this is built right now, user 2 is the first approver, user 3 is the second, and then the group RFIN AP RDA approvers is the third and final approver. So if you've entered in your users incorrectly, rather than having to, delete these and rebuild them all, you actually have the capability of just dragging these things around to the proper order if that's what you like. Now, for time-wise, we are going to just have it set to 1 approval process, because the process is going to be exactly the same, whether it's the first, second, or third approver. So what I'll do here is I'll just assign it to my group so we can see what that looks like. And then we'll have a little comment here about conditional approvers. So conditional approvers, we won't set up, but it is there for organizations that potentially have what we call higher risk information. And the way this works is that when the RDA package identifies that there are objects in here with a higher risk classification, it can automatically tack on another level or 2 of approvers. So for example, if you had legal case files going up for review, maybe you want to say, well, I want the VP of Finance to be tacked on at the very end of my approval process, just to give that 1 extra set of approval level on those records. But again, for speed, we'll just leave this off. Auto process approved items does exactly what that sounds like. When we receive back all the approvers, anything that has been approved will have the default action that is configured on your RSI applied to those records. So typically, a lot of the times dispositions are for deletion. So if your default process on your RSI is delete, when RDA receives the final package back from the final approver and it's been approved, it can kick off that delete process automatically for you. Now, the last one over here is the ability to customize the approve and reject buttons. So disposition does not always mean delete. A disposition could mean for archival, for example. So we wanted to make sure that when this RDA package is sent to our users, it can be very clear to them when they click an approve button what they're approving, because they may have multiple RDA packages or approval processes on the go. And if it was just a generic approve and a generic reject, they may get confused saying, well, I thought I was approving for archival as approve instead of approving for destruction. So we allow the records manager to customize the button labels and tabs that you'll see later on to be very specific in what they're doing. So the default value is approved for destruction. So I will just do a approve for delete, and we'll leave the reject and extend there for now. I'll save my changes, and we'll talk about the items down here. Okay, So if you remember, we had 120 items returned from our disposition search. So here we are in our report items that contain all 120, but that was for accounts payable and accounts receivable. And we are sending out this work package only for the accounts payable approvers. So what I need to do is I need to pull out my accounts receivable records because they're not supposed to be in this approval package. So over here on the right, we have, what looks very much like our facets that you have in standard content server. Now, the one little difference compared to the standard facets in content server is in order for your facets to be displayed in content server, you have to create the facet, add the facet to a facet tree, and then tell content server where you want that facet tree to be displayed. The RDA facets are much more dynamic. You would simply just create the facet, a traditional content server facet, and then RDA dynamically builds whatever ones are applicable to the record set that are returned in this work package. So there's no need to adding it to a tree and then telling it to be used in a specific disposition RDA work package. It's done all dynamically for you. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use my department facet over here, accounts receivable, and I'm going to filter that down to my 45 objects. And I need to exclude them. So there are multiple pages here, so 2 pages, and I will select all the 25 items on this page, but I want to select all of the items. So we have the ability to select all items across all pages, so you don't have to step through and go page by page excluding them. So we've selected all 45. We'll click exclude, and what we'll do is now move those objects out of the report items into my excluded items. So now only 75 items that are my accounts payable are going to be sent to this set of approvers right here. And you could have, again, you can see here we have some physical items. Maybe you have different approvers. If it was a physical item, you could filter on other things like the company name over here, because maybe you already know that there's a legal hold that you forgot to apply to the record, and you want to take care of that right now. So all the filters are there. You just click them, slice and dice it, and then you're ready to go. So now that I have my 75 items in my report, I'm going to kick off the approval process. So I'll just go down here to the bottom, click on initiate sign-off process, and we'll come back to the RDA page. And now we see that instead of in the pending items, we're now in the initiated RDAs. And here we can see that the current approver is the finance approver. We have 75 items that are still waiting to be reviewed, and the additional information. And we'll come back to this page in a little bit to see what it looks like once we've had some approvals done on it. So what I'll do now is I'm going to log in as a member of that AAP group. So over here, we'll log out. User 3. Now, when we initiated that work package, again, it was being sent to a group of users. So every member of that group is going to receive an email, and in it saying that they've been assigned an RDA work package, and it'll take them to a link that's found in their underneath the personal menu. It's called Records Disposition Approvals, and this is where it'll take them. So every member of that group has received this link in their personal assignments. And then when you click on it, it'll open up. And we're going to get a little message box popping up here telling the user that it's been offered to a group of users and it requires a member to accept it. So it gives them the opportunity to take a look at these records and go, you know what, I don't think I'm the right one. I'm not going to click on the accept button and hope that one of my colleagues will do it. Or if I do feel like, yes, I am going to take this on, all I need to do is click on the accept. And then all the functions that are available for that user becomes available now. Okay, so let's go through this screen top to bottom again. So now at the top, you can see the instructions that we configured has been sent to the user. There's our links and a link to an email address. It tells me when the disposition review package is due. And so that's my personal due date. If we had multiple approvers. When it reaches the next one, it'll be another 30 days from when that person receives it. Tells me that I have 75 objects to work through and I haven't done any yet, and I don't have any outstanding feedback. So here are my 75 items that I need to work through. And they're broken up into tabs. And you notice here that my customization for my tab is shown right here, approved for delete. And right below it, you can see the button is also customized, approved for delete. So if you were building a package for archival, you could say approved for archive, and both the tab and button would reflect that. So there is no confusion for the user when they're clicking that button on a record, what they're doing. We have the reject and extend objects, and then our feedback requests. So the benefit of this tab system is when you have very large data sets to work through in terms of performing a disposition review, it is very easy to keep track of where you've left off. Traditionally, in the out-of-the-box functionality is just a flat list. And if you are the secondary approver or later on, and you are maintaining the approval state, when you go in and you supply your view, there's no indication on the screen where you've left off. So it might not be too bad when it's 75 objects, you probably get through all of those in one sitting. But if you have hundreds or even thousands to go through, that could be multiple days of effort. And so there is no way, if you step away from your desk, to come back to go, oh, I've already done the first 50, I now have to pick up the 51st onward. So this tab system is very easy for users. They can work, walk away, come back, and they know exactly what is left for them to work on. So the process here is very, very simple. It is as easy as saying, clicking a checkbox for that Acme Corp contract. And if we want it to be approved for delete, we click the approve, and we'll take it out of pending, and we'll move it over into the approve for delete. Same thing with the reject. If we know that, let's go over here to Cyberdyne. Maybe we want to reject a Cyberdyne invoice here. We click on reject and extend. We'll get a little pop-up button, pop-up box. And we have it configured that if you are going to reject the disposition and want it to be extended, you're going to have to choose a valid reason. We just don't let you, reject for no reason. So again, this is configured in the system. So maybe we notice that there should have been a legal hold on this one, and we're saying this should be hold 1, 2, 3 applied to it. Please reject and extend, and we'll take that object out, and we're going to put it over into a reject and extend. So now you can see we've worked on 2. We have 73 left. Now, sometimes we don't know if we are allowed to be, or we want to approve or reject the item. So RDA allows you to request feedback from colleagues. So maybe on the Acme Corp invoice, we're going to request a feedback. And so very similar to when we were signing our approvers, we can type in our users' names. And again, we can have as many feedback users as we want. Click OK. We'll pull it out of pending, put it into our feedback request. And those users that we selected are going to get an email saying that they have been requested to provide their feedback on a set of users, on a set of documents for an RDA. And again, for time-wise, we won't run through that process, but the interfaces are going to look exactly the same. So when these users log in, user 2 and 4, they are going to right now only see one record that they can either approve or reject. Now, they can't request feedback, so they can't keep just requesting other feedback, but they simply say yes or no, and we will display their recommended action for this record. But ultimately, it is the approver that has to make a decision. So for example, if user 4 said approve and user 2 said reject, ultimately the user that we're in here as user 3 needs to make the decision. And they can override because maybe their recommendation here is, okay, it's approved and approved, but then you realize, oh, wait a minute, it is underneath a legal hold. I shouldn't be approving it. So I can override, click on my reject and extend, and choose my legal hold. and we'll take it out of the requested feedback and put it into our reject and extend. So we have the facets here as well. So functions exactly like we saw before. We can filter on any information, so we can maybe say, okay, we know everything under Acme. It was a brand new legal hold that came in, so it didn't receive the hold applied in Content Server. So maybe we want to bulk reject and extend, and we'll say that should be hold 1, 2, 3. And then I will move all of those objects out of the pending items and into our rejected. So what we've done here is it's done really quick and basic approval and rejection on this information. A lot of the times, the information an approver needs to make it a decision on whether it should be approved or rejected is hidden behind the scenes in the metadata. So as you can see here, we do surface a little bit of the metadata. So records classification, the status date, and calculated date. But we are very limited to how much we can put on the screen just because of limited screen real estate. So we have the ability for the users to use this more information icon. So clicking on the more information icon will, whoops, I'll close those windows. Don't want to give away the surprises. There we go. So when we click on the more information, this main window shows up and is going to surface much more of the information. So tells me who the owner and owner group was, gives me the full folder location of the object, because that often provides a lot of business context on the record. It shows me some basic records detail information, the description field that was filled out, and then if there was some feedback going on. But what about our categories? So we click on a category tab, we're going to open up a new window, and now we see the categories that are applied to it. And again, out of the box functionality, right? When you go to the categories tab, you have to click on company category, click on the department category, click on the disposition category to see them all. So what we do here is we flatten that. And so there's no need for the user to click on each category tab to see all the metadata on all the categories. Now we have view specific. So specific for an electronic document, not too valuable. However, if this was a physical item, there could be some valuable information here. So not only the type, but the home location, some storage IDs, as well as any custom fields that may be on the object. The other important field that can need some metadata is the records detail tab. So that one right here. So now we have 4 screens that is surfacing pretty much all of the metadata for our objects. And so there is no need now for the user to go clicking around trying to find all of this information. In one view, everything is in front of their face. And so now from this main window, they're able to make a better decision on whether they should approve for delete or reject. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to approve this one for deletion. And we're going to pay attention to all these windows. So they're all invoice, Stark Industries, invoice 13245. And I'm going to approve for delete. And what we'll see is all of these windows are now updated with the next record that we have to work on, the invoice list. So again, I can look at all my metadata, click on approve for delete, and then it'll automatically go to my next one. So it minimizes that the amount of clicks a user needs to go through in order to surface that information, make a decision, and then take action on it. Now we can just literally do one click to approve. And then if we are in fact rejecting, we are going to have to do some additional information, but it's still very, very easy and seamless for the user. Okay, so that is the more information icon. So now we still have 56. And what I want to go through next is showing you what the next step in this process would look like once the approvals have been received. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to bulk approve the remaining 56 items. So I will select all 56, approve for delete. I'll get a message saying, do you want to mark it as complete because you've done your work? So I do have the ability to say no here. Maybe I want to sleep on it and have one final look at it tomorrow. If that's the case, I would select no and you come back and then resubmit it. But I'll say yes. And at this point, because I am the final approver and only approver, the records manager gets a notification that the review is complete and that it can come in and take a look at the RDA package. So let's log back in as that records manager user. Okay, so we'll go to our RDA admin workspace. There is our initiated RDA package. And what I can do is I'm going to go into that package now. So we can see that this status has changed from initiated to ready for processing. And that's an indication to the records manager that all of the feedback has been received. All of the approval states have been received for that object. So I can go into that work package. I can now see who the approvers were, when they completed their review, and now I can go in here and see the items that have been approved and have been rejected. So you notice here we have an unreviewed tab. So there is a bunch of configuration settings in RDA that allows the automatic forwarding of an RDA work package if people do not complete in time. And when that is enabled and the very last person hasn't completed their review, there's a potential for items to be, the work package to be completed without having an item being reviewed. So that's where we'll list them here. But our package has had everything reviewed, so now they're found either in approved or in the reject tab. And these are the 45 that we excluded at the very beginning. So here we can take a look at our reject and extend. And so we have a total of 16, and it tells me over here the extension comment. So these are the reasons why the approver has requested it to be rejected and extended. We could open this up, and at the tab, if there was more than one user, one approver, we would see every single one. So if we had 4 levels of approvers, we'd see each person's status on the record. So it could have been approved by the first 3 and rejected by the last, and we'd be able to track all that here. Now, in this case here, we have 2 of our items here that said one should be a hold, and the other one had the wrong classification. So what we have the capability here directly from the RDA tool is to take actions on these. And so what in this scenario, Cyberdyne systems should not be hold 1, 2, 3. That's for the Acme Corp. So there's an error that that the approver has performed. So I have the capability as a records manager to go in here and override the approval state. So I select my item, click on override approval state, click go, and I can say user made a mistake, and I will approve for the deletion, and it'll take it out of my reject and extend and put it over into my approve for delete. I could apply hold here as well. Whoops, there. So directly from this, I could choose all my objects and directly apply a hold for my one that had the wrong classification. That typically means it's in the wrong folder, so I could move it directly from here as well. And we can also update metadata on their physical item tab and the records management tab as well. So traditionally in a content server environment, it's going to be a little bit more effort in order for you to take actions such as apply a legal hold to a group of records. You're going to have to collect them, and then from the collection, you're going to have to perform your bulk actions. So again, the goal of RDA is to simplify that RDA records disposition approval process for the end user and records manager. For the delete, similar actions are available. We have the ability to update the metadata, override the approval state, as well as move. Okay, so if I've taken the action, such as maybe applied my legal holds to the items that got rejected, my last step that I'm going to need to do is to, in this case, because it was a disposition delete, to delete my objects. So as a records manager, I can just jump right to my snapshot. And you'll notice that the interface has changed a little bit here. Those bars at the top have been replaced by just a table indicating to you the RDA work packages that have been built off of this disposition search. So we actually only have one right now. And because it's a ready for processing RDA, we have a little checkbox next to it. And that checkbox, when we select it, we're going to import all of the approval states that we've collected and update the disposition search results here. So we'll do that. And so now we're sucking in the approval states. And now you can see that, we have the ones that we have said reject and extend are rejected, and the ones that we have approved are approved. And at this point, the records manager, all they need to do is come in here, click on perform actions, and it will do whatever the default action is on the RSI. So very, very easy again to ingest your approval states collected by RDA into core content server. One button click does the disposition action. And that would be the final step. Now, a couple of things I'll show you before we'll demonstrate the automatic building of the packages and sending them out for review. Is I'm going to build one more disposition search here. So let's go back to the RDA workspace. And I am going to build a secondary one. Go over here to my pending tab, add new. And this is for my accounts receivable RDA work package. I'm going to choose the same disposition search, same snapshot, and click create. Now, if you remember, we had 120 items that were in the snapshot total, but we had 75 that were accounts payable. So now when I built this package, you notice that I automatically only have 45 in my report, and 75 are automatically excluded for me. So if we click on the excluded items tab, we'll see a message over here on the right that these items are already in an active RDA workspace, work package. So we do not allow you to build work packages with duplicate records in them, because you could potentially get conflicting approval states back, and then we're not going to be able to know which one should have a priority. And so that's a little safeguard that we have here. One other really neat feature that we have is that when you run your disposition search, and when you have this option configured, is we will filter your snapshots with any items and remove any items that are already out into a RDA work package. So running the same snapshot over and over again doesn't give you the same results. It'll actually start filtering down and only show new records that have not been sent out for review. Okay, so let's show the magic. I am going to recall this work package because I'm going to delete it and build them from fresh. So recall allows a records manager to pull back a package that they've sent out and potentially make some changes to it. So I will click on recall. We have a message that is sent out to the approvers, letting them know that we're taking this back. Comes over here to your pending, and we are going just to delete those two. Okay, so let's show the automation of this. So let's go to our disposition workspace. Here's our finance disposition search that we've been using. I'm going to go to the properties, and with RDA installed, you have a new tab. And so what we're going to turn on here is we're going to turn on the auto generate. And so what will happen here is when we run it, it will automatically generate the RDA work packages. Well, how does it know which objects go to which approver? Well, we are slicing and dicing based on metadata. So if you remember, on every object, we capture primary and secondary approver. So RDA will look at those metadata fields and build the unique set of records for whatever groups were applied to those objects, and build the package and then automatically send them out to you. Now we have the ability to do that slice and dice based on a bunch of different metadata fields. So we could do it directly on the user who owns the object, the group owner, the records manager. So that's a field on your records detail tab, same with the records officer, or an attribute value, which we're using here. So we'll leave that there. There's our conditional approvers, and we will save the changes. And now what I'll do over here is I will restart my search. So I will check to make sure my search has completed. So 11:02, that's today. And now I will go to my RDA workspace. And you notice that I already have 2 initiated RDAs. I can see Fin 1 and Fin 2. And if I look over here, I have 75 objects in one, and it is sent to my accounts payable receivers. 45 in the other, and that is my accounts receivable records. So RDA, based on those pieces of metadata, sliced and diced that one disposition search and built 2 unique packages and identified the approvers and sent them out for review, 100% automatically. So we have customers that use this feature in combination with scheduling your disposition search, as well as that ability to filter your disposition search results to exclude items that are in an RDA package, to 100% automate their disposition approval process. So Content Server automatically runs a search, kicks off the automatically creation of the RDA packages, automatically sends them out for review, automatically processes them out, and that process just happens every quarter automatically. And so that customer there, they have an employee base of over 30,000 users, and they have like 2 records managers. So, just logistically, they couldn't handle a very manual process, and they're able to use RDA to facilitate their entire process. And my target's for 8:45, so I'm right on target here. And I will say every action in RDA, when we're building our packages, if we're overriding approval states, users providing feedback, it's all audited. We keep track of every touch on those objects and every opinion on it to make sure that you can have a very defensible records disposition approval process if the need be. Okay, so that concludes the demo. Sean, is there any outstanding questions?
No questions. Again, if anyone has some questions, they can enter them into chat. And if you have any questions after the fact that you didn't want to have on the recording, please reach out to me and I will put you in touch with Rob as well. We're also available, Rob won't be, but I will be available for 2 of the open houses that Cassia will be hosting today, later on. You can sign up for those open houses by adding them to your agenda and again to you as well. Okay, if there's no questions, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. This recording will also become available after our expo. It'll be probably a couple of weeks, but you will automatically get that by email. If you also want to be privy to other shows, any other news, please feel free to sign up for our newsletter at otsolex.com. Okay, thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.